Hi class, it's time to start working on your fourth paper, the analysis. So this is the third piece in the ways of reading and interacting with texts list that you're going through this semester. For this paper, you will write an analysis of any one of the following articles: The Coddling of the American Mind, Why I Use Trigger Warnings, Why I Can't Reread Anymore, and Is Google Making Us Stupid? The nuts and bolts, your basic requirements for this paper are to include a thesis statement, at least one quote, a quote sandwich, or many quote sandwiches, and a works cited page. The nuts and bolts are the same as with previous weeks. Aim for about 2 pages in length. Ideally, submit it as a PDF. It's worth 6 points and it's due on Sunday. And you can find our grading guide with all the other essential information you'll need about the assignment expectations on the analysis assignment page on Moodle. Okay, basic information out of the way. Let's talk about what analysis is. A lot of students have a big fear of analysis, but I hope this presentation will help you see that you are perfectly capable of doing an analysis. And analysis is not as scary or as hard as you have been led to believe. Analysis sounds scary and intimidating because it has a reputation for requiring students to dig deep into texts in order to look for hidden meanings. And while some analyses do that, what you'll be doing for this paper is a rhetorical analysis in which you will examine how an article is put together, what kind of persuasive tactics it uses, and why the writer might have chosen those particular rhetorical moves given his or her audience, purpose, and context. So, can you tell the difference between these two types of shoes? Can you tell the difference between these two types of cars? Can you tell the difference between these two types of footprints? What about this? Can you tell the difference between all these types of dogs? You probably said yes, right? If you did, you just did an analysis. The reason you were able to distinguish between these items is because you could distinguish the object's distinct features, its color, its shape, its size. If you can break down an object into its parts, you're doing analysis. Similarly, have you ever taken apart a mechanical pen or pencil to see how it works? Have you ever loved a piece of clothing so much that you had to try to find another one just like it, or even make another one just like it? Have you ever labeled the parts of a flower? You can do analysis. You're perfectly capable of it. So, rhetorical analyses examine how an article is put together, what kind of persuasive tactics it uses, and why the writer might have chosen those particular rhetorical moves given his or her audience, purpose, genre, and context. Part of what will help you to get into the analytical mode of mind is to distinguish between what texts say and what texts do. What texts say would be what you would include in a summary. It's the content, the opinions, the actual data, the stories, whatever it is that's shared in terms of content. What texts do include the rhetorical function of the text. So here are some words about what texts can do. You can find this list on a handout on Moodle if you want to print it out and keep it handy. You'll be doing an activity using Says and Does this week to practice. So take a look at this list, but you'll have the opportunity to look more carefully on a handout online. So remember this, your ways of interacting with texts? These are all the papers you're writing this semester. So far you've shortened, your text through summary, you've agreed or disagreed through response, and now we're getting ready to do analysis, which looks at how a text is put together. We still have this evaluation and synthesis coming up. I bring this up because response and evaluation and analysis often get confused, and what we're working on this week is analysis. So I have these funny triplets here to show off how the thesis statements for these three modes of textual interaction differ. A response thesis indicates agreeing or disagreeing, and it would look something like, I agree with Robert Reich's essay, Affirmative Action for the Rich, because college isn't for everyone and trade schools are an excellent higher ed alternative. An evaluative thesis indicates whether an essay is persuasive or unpersuasive, and would look something like, Robert Reich's Affirmative Action for the Rich is persuasive because he uses pithy, fast-paced language, short paragraphs, and simple arguments that make blog writing effective. Right there, we have a good/bad judgment. But what's really interesting is if you take the good/bad language out of your evaluative thesis statement, you've got yourself an analysis. So we'll just read that again without saying persuasive. So, for example, Robert Reich's essay, Affirmative Action for the Rich, uses pithy, fast-paced language, short paragraphs, and simple arguments. And we could probably take out that make blog writing effective, but that's part of it too. It's not saying he does a good job. He's aiming to use that language. The only difference between the analytical and evaluative thesis statements is the judgment of good or bad. In fact, your analysis should not use personal opinion about the topic. So you'll want to avoid saying words like good, bad, persuasive, unpersuasive, dumb, brilliant, I loved it or hated it, whatever. So let's see if you get this and through a little bit of practice. Is this analysis or evaluation? In X article, author's name uses pathos to create a persuasive argument in favor of school choice. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? It's evaluation. That word persuasive is our clue. Analysis or evaluation. In X article by author's name, pathos through personal experience is the main form of judgment. What do you think? What is it? What is it? It's analysis. There's no judgment, and the focus is on rhetorical strategy, not on the content. All right, is this response or analysis? I agree with X article, especially author's name's argument that education during the pandemic is challenging. What could it be? It's response. Our word agree is the clue for this one. One more. Is this analysis or response? In X article, author's name uses an informal and light tone. Let's see, what is it? It is analysis. Again, there's no judgment, and the focus is on the rhetorical strategy, not on the content. All right, that was a lot of information, and I really hope it helped. But if you're confused or struggling, as always, bring your questions to class. We will be practicing analysis more this week. In the meantime, happy analyzing!